Hello, my name is Eddie Tofpik. I'm Head of Technical Analysis and Senior Markets Analyst at ADM Investor Services International Limited. And here is your weekly technical analysis of Paris Rapeseed, Winnipeg Canola, and Malaysian palm oil. However, before we start, I just wanted to let you know that no AI, that is artificial intelligence, was ever used in the composition, production, or recognition of any of these patterns, levels, analysis, or any related items on these my charts. This was all authentic intelligence, all my own original work, as I think you deserve to have that. So with that, Paris Rapeseed. Prices during late April and May pushed up through some pretty significant congestion dating from September 2012, between 5.13 and 3/4 to 5.19 and a half. Our prices ran into a roadblock in early June at the March 23 high of 5.40 and 3/4 and dropped off until 3 weeks ago, when we had at the time a small gap filling recovery, this time halted by another roadblock, or should I say a couple of roadblocks. The first and possibly the most significant was the bright red neckline extension, currently at 5.27 and 3/4 of the April to August 2024 head and shoulders top, a neckline that throughout mid-late May to early June, the market tried making into a base of action, which is something that we are very familiar with today. The second, and to a lesser degree obstruction, was the July 23 high at 5.26 and a half. Congestion also pointed out 5 weeks ago, and one we are also familiar with today for a similar reason. Anyway, last week had been quite interesting with a third gapping move higher, but one that had no intention of becoming an exhaustion gap, as prices pushed higher through some stratified congestion, all the way up to the 61.8% absolute Fibonacci line at 5.53 and a quarter. We also saw development of the newly drawn pattern last week on my daily chart, which is the dark blue mid-April to late June bullish shift pitch hook, with prices up towards the dark blue upper time, currently at 5.56 and 3/4. Beyond this dark blue upper time, we have very little until the February 23 high at 5.65 even. So when we're moving above it today, it is actually interesting. As I said at the start of July, and I quote, I suspect this newly drawn dark blue bullish shift pitch hook may be a significant part of this commodity's future, so watch and see. End of quote. This leaves me with my final point, a pattern I've described last week, and I quote, a small double bottom Adam and Eve type with a precinct number, with a primary, a small double bottom Adam and Eve type with a primary target X at 5.38 even, just under June's high, and a secondary hard to reach target X1 at 5.43 even, under the 2026 high, and one not seen since January 2025. I think this secondary target may be a stretch too far, and even the primary target is asking a lot, pushing up over the dark blue middle time. However, this is just now, but by the end of July, the dark blue middle time will be above target X, which makes it more interesting. End of quote. I do not need to wait till the end of July, as prices have already reached up not only the primary target X at 5.38 even, but also and through the secondary target X1 up at 5.43 even. And now watch carefully to see what the next developments will be. Winnipeg Canola. Just one pattern still shows the overall way forward. This longer term pattern I spoke about 20 weeks ago, and I said, and I quote, I've also drawn in the meantime a March to December 2025 bullish Andrews pitchfork. End of quote. This pitchfork, now highlighted in bright pink on my daily chart, has so far not had any tines, even now, not had any tines tested, bar the lower time right back at the start, and that held up pretty well back then. Despite this, I still think this pattern is very important for now and in the future. So please, please, please keep it in mind and keep a watch on it. We are today between the bright pink middle time above, currently 8.47.10, and the bright pink lower time below, currently at 7.12.80. It's also left us with two shorter term patterns. The first is a small lopsided mid-May to mid-June head and shoulders pattern. The dark blue neckline, currently at 782.40. This pattern also forms part of a head of a much larger, more complex mid-April to late June head and shoulders pattern. A bright red neckline above, currently at 724.60. The smaller head and shoulders top saw a break below the neckline mid-June, reaching a primary target in the 733.20 zone. A secondary hard to reach target X2 is down in the 707 even zone, but which, as I said in early July, and I quote, "But given the way the market reacted back in mid-April, when we last saw a drop lower to these sort of levels, one that may have its own challenges," end of quote. This has proved to be the case, enough that I gave myself some notice of retiring this secondary target last time I should say, and will not do so after this commentary. The second larger head and shoulders pattern failed to properly form as a head and shoulders top, and now considered it a rarer head and shoulders continuation pattern for all the implications that has. There's another pattern to throw into the mix here. I'm sorry about this, but it is true. When I spoke about in early July, when I said, and I quote, "A small basing action, possibly even a small double bottom. We will, as in the other markets, soon know, I suspect," end of quote. Now, this ended up being a small double bottom, Adam and Adam type, that's reached both its primary and secondary targets topside. This leads me to a newer pattern I introduced in early July, but isn't even now still early on, and I am honestly not too sure about it. It is the bright green mid-April to mid-June bullish shift picture, with the market moving up towards the bright green upper time, currently at 818.40. The dark blue small head and shoulders neckline below the market. I am not sure on this pattern, but I'd watch it carefully, as it might show that it has been. Might show what is interfering with the monthly key reversal down for June, and thus show what could be a bigger pattern overall. Bursa Malaysia crude palm oil. Please take no special significance on the color of my notations on this daily chart. My charting system sometimes goes rogue and decides it wishes to use other colors, in this case bright red for my notes, but it does not signify anything special. Okay, so as I've done here for most of last year and now into 2026, I'd recognize the wide congestion area that was overhead, but which became support, then a bigger congestion, and now into becoming support once more between 44.08 to 45.59. Prices which had since late March been up over it bar one failed attempt lower mid-April, finally punched their way down through it 9 weeks ago, but could not sustain the move lower with an original gapping action higher, changeover or otherwise, which topped out for a second time 8 weeks ago, dropped down, and 7 weeks ago capped higher once again, only to top out once more in the process and filling in some gaps. However, the market has not done yet with these heartbeat moments, going up and down and up and down. As early as 4 weeks ago, the market bounced up from the mauve medium moving average, currently at 44.94, pushing higher 3 weeks ago up through the bright green upper bull channel line, currently 46.19, of this bright green April to date shallow bear channel, which is currently at 42.83 to 46.19. However, even this piercing higher could not be sustained with no closes over the bright green upper bear channel line. I have to say, since mid-May we have seen rising lows, which is a sign of bullish incentive, even if the top side has been limited, and I will cover that shortly. This all came down to the same question here I've been asking for the past 9 weeks, and I quote, "Question is the same as elsewhere in the veg oils and oilseeds. With the cap higher and significant supports below, is this market forming a topping action, or is it some form of bullish halfway hesitation?" End of quote. I continued, and I quote, "Here it is not so obvious, and indeed it is not obvious if we are forming either a topping action or a bullish halfway hesitation. all this has left us with is that 4408 to 4559 congestion, which I spoke about right at the beginning, as well as a pattern I drew 7 weeks ago of a mid-April 26 to date very shallow bright green bear channel. Right now we're towards the top end of this bright green shallow bear channel. I would only add something I spoke about 5 weeks ago when I said, and I quote, "So this current pattern here that is driving this market, and I would watch this one very carefully for the next direction. However, just be aware of the possibility of false breaks given what we have created could be quite huge." And that's the end of the quote. That has been my view for these many weeks. But I have, as I mentioned earlier, noted the rising lows and fairly static highs of a bullish incentive. A new pattern has emerged, an early May to date ascending triangle pattern highlighted in dark blue on my daily chart, which is currently 44.79 to 46.70. Now, there are no targets here yet on this pattern because we have not broken in either direction as yet, but I can lay out some potentials for either a move higher or lower from a breakout of this ascending triangle. Thus, the primary potential on the top side would be plus 241 ringgits from a confirmed breakout from the ascending triangle pattern, which with a secondary harder to reach potential of plus 344 ringgits from a confirmed breakout of this ascending triangle pattern. Please note we have the strong possibility of false breaks, so please pay attention to this. Meanwhile, a primary potential on the downside would be minus 151 ringgits from a confirmed break from the ascending triangle pattern, with a secondary harder to reach potential of minus 344 ringgits from a confirmed breakout from the ascending triangle pattern. Please note, as I've said earlier, we have the strong possibility of false breaks. So please pay special attention to this in either direction. It'll be interesting to see how this all develops. Thank you for watching and listening. This weekly broadcast gives the essential market patterns and consequences. Please be aware of the risk disclaimer posted both at the front and at the back of this broadcast. Copyright is Eddie Tofpik and ADM Investor Services International Limited. And here comes the final important bit.